What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamer Dad channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Another early start for the day, hitting the roads, trying to complete some projects before a really hot day gets set into motion. This is summer. Many of you that live in the United States, you know how it rolls, and if you live in the Midwest, you know how it heats up. Today, we're going to talk about gear balancing in the Division 1, some of the Division 2, and how I think the developers might want to approach the Division 3 with their gear balancing. Division 1 was quite interesting, came out a bunch of really interesting gear, a bunch of broken stuff in the DZ, a bunch of broken stuff in PvE, in fact, a bunch of brokenness in PvE. You guys remember where you could have like 50 players in PvE modes and such, and eventually the developers reined all that stuff in. They were like, no, we're not going to do that. But the gear game in the Division 1 culminated after adding gear sets and making balances and tweaking things like Sentry's Call, making it PvE only or making it more impactful to enemy NPCs. We got the classified gear sets. I've been playing the Division 1 here in the past few weeks, just back and forth. When I remember I was doing my level design analysis series, and I noticed that all of the classified gear were super impactful in the way that they worked. Like, they did a good job. Now, some of them, yes, they were kind of like, you normally would say OP. Now, some of them were kind of underpowered in, significant areas that you could basically use. But if somebody honed it down, really, really well, like Alpha Bridge or Final Measure or whatever, if somebody honed them down, they really did represent. Like, it was one of those things where you could feel it. Tactician's Authority, when that got, spec'd well, you felt the difference. However, when it comes down to Division 2, it just seemed like, it took way too long to get there, in a sense. Now, not saying that Division 2's gear is not good. In fact, I do like the Division 2's gear as well. In fact, I like aspects of it better than the Division 1, but it took a while to get there. Remember, if you get what I mean. It wasn't like, once we opened it out the box, we were in love with it. In fact, the gear made no sense when the game launched. We were like, well, what's going on here? It's like, the developers, I don't know if they didn't finish it or if they probably got a build and they were like, okay, this build seems to be working. Let's continue working on the rest of it. Because, remember skill, tiers, it wasn't even skill tiers then. It was just like, your electronics categories and all that stuff before they eventually started to say, okay, let's look at our different tiers. Let's look at how things work. Let's look at the damage system. Let's look at armor. Let's look at the gear. Let's look at weapons. Let's look at talents. And it just seemed like the Division, 2 finally launched, good gear later down the road. Now, these two things, in my opinion, really did create a contrast, number one, as to the teams who were making the second game compared to the first, game. And it also, basically gives you a kind of a blueprint of, okay, this is what the devs do not need to do. And so, number one, as the devs are cooking the Division 3, they need to ensure that it is done before it gets out of before it gets served to the public. Because the Division 2, let's be honest, we cannot get into strongholds, right? I mean, we're having some issues getting into strongholds by the end of the game. There were some aspects of the game in the Division 2 right after launch that were not yet solidified. So this is the one thing that I would say the developers need to pay very, very close attention to. They need to ensure that their game is done cooking in terms of the gear game. They need to ensure that all cylinders are firing. They need to ensure that the gear game is meaningful and impactful. In fact, they need to ensure that they've planned their 1, 2, 3 patches in a way that is sensible too. Because that's what they're going to do anyways, right? They're going to sit there and they're going to nerf stuff and they're going to buff stuff. They're going to make some stuff OP to cause trouble within the community. Oh my gosh, this gear set's so big. Well, yeah. But make sure that when you're making your nerf, that it's in a way, or you're doing something that makes it impactful, so that you're not doing this carrot on a stick approach nonsense that has been done in the past division. Well, I say past. In Division 1, it's not past. People are still playing it, and even in Division 2, because you do know that developers do that on purpose, right? I'll give you another example. Take, for instance, Mortal Kombat. When developers over at NetherRealms, when they release a new character or when they bring a new character to the scene, or maybe they're doing like a certain, like, you know, a pack with new fighters coming in, you'll notice that some of the either the guest fighters, who are the ones that they probably gone and paid a bunch of money for to be in their game, you realize that those guest fighters are straight up busted. Like those fighters will be touching you, you know, and their damage is going to be insane. And then the community is going to cry and whine and cry and whine and cry. Oh my gosh. And, you know, it's legit. I'm not saying that they're whining illegitimately. And the developers are like, oh, okay, you guys, you think it's busted? Okay, we're going to nerf it. When in reality, they literally, you know, knew it was busted. They made it busted. And the same has happened to the Division many, many times. They'll put some gun in the game and they're like, oh, this is, you know, they will wait for people to shout, oh, it's busted. And then they'll nerf the whole darn thing. So the reality here is, before we get to that point, when they're doing the nerfs and the buffs, I think the gear game needs to just be meaningful, and they need to plan the meaningful nature of all of this from scratch. That's basically what I think is going to really make Division 3 stand out, so we're not repeating the same exact thing that we're going through. And, you know, at the end of the day, I'm sure they have a lot of good ideas that they don't, you know, that they never really put into practice. And I'm sure those, you know, those ideas, you know, can still, you know, shine in meaningful ways. Do y'all remember, and I cannot remember the name of the gear set. There was a gear set in the Division 1 that got taken out. It was too strong, and the developers literally pulled it. I'm certain within their notes, they have all kinds of fun gear and stuff that, you know, will make the game seem OP or broken or whatnot. And they can literally apply those things to make other gear sets, you know, and even they use brand sets. I don't know about brand sets, man. I really don't know. Do y'all want brand set shenanigans in Division 3? Perhaps some of you might, but, you know, it just causes a lot of weird stuff in terms of, okay, why am I even using this, you know, one build that's going to seem close to the other build and whatnot, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, this is what I think will really help the Division 3 as, you know, a gear set based looter shooter. You know, your gear set being meaningful right off the bat, and any changes that are being made allow for the gear sets to either continue to remain impactful, or even the gear set that is being changed remain impactful in a sense. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. I'm going to hop off here. I appreciate you guys' time and audience. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll talk hopefully pretty soon in another one. Peace out.